When looking for a franchise that has continued to show itself as one of the highest standards within its genre, you'd be challenged to find an answer as strong as Evil Dead. What started as nothing more than a dream for a trio of friends in the 80s has spun into something of a horror dynasty, so iconic that its main face in Bruce Campbell's insanely charming and charismatic Ash Williams stands the battle against the genre's most infamous faces. The original Evil Dead trilogy is something considered by most fans of this genre, myself included, to be a masterpiece. It understood itself. It was something of a unique experience, a spiralling descent into insanity so severe that at times the concept of horror is warped beyond its initial boundaries. I'm looking at you, Army of Darkness, which, for the record, isn't a negative. I absolutely love this thing. It showcases a completely loose Sam Raimi at his peak. But then we have 2013's Evil Dead from Fede Alvarez, a remake that in my eyes presents the perfect example of what a horror remake can be. It justifies itself in being a modern retelling of Sam Raimi's original vision, once hampered by a budget and now realised in its entirety. It's a clever film utilising a layered approach to tell a story about a battling drug addiction, which is something that's shown in much broader detail in a great video from Brian Hollinger, and on top of that, it doesn't try to be the Evil Dead. It's well aware of its roots, but simultaneously doesn't try too hard to emulate them, withholding the key elements that actually make it an Evil Dead movie. In reality, Evil Dead is a franchise that has never truly left the horror landscape, highlighted with this year's Evil Dead Rise, the fifth theatrical entry into this franchise. Directed by Lee Cronin and featuring a great cast, Rise acts as yet another reset that takes this franchise in a quick new direction. And it's something that had me invested as early as that initial teaser trailer. Now, having seen this movie twice, I can undoubtedly say that as of the midpoint of this year, Evil Dead Rise absolutely is my favourite release we've gotten. Before we go any further, a casual reminder to leave a little like and subscribe if you enjoy what you see here. It really does go a long way in helping the channel. I just have to start off by saying that I absolutely adore this film, and I've been thinking about it non-stop since the last time I saw it. It feels like a Frankenstein vision of both Raimi and Alvarez's depictions of the universe, combining in an incredibly satisfying way to create a blend that is not only horrifying, but never forgets to sprinkle that signature dark humour that the franchise is known for. As early as the first few minutes of Evil Dead Rise, we are made aware that this thing is going to be a spectacle, instantly luring you into a setting not too dissimilar to what we've seen in previous movies. We're also shown that the opening takes place a whole day after the rest of the movie, which shows us that any form of victory is not going to come in terms of, your average win. It's more going to be done through personal growth and character development. Finishing the opening with what might just be one of the coldest title cards in the history of horror, and we're ready to dig right into things. Evil Dead Rise follows Beth as our protagonist, an unlikely hero in this scenario after she discovers that she's pregnant, realising the only person she can turn to in this situation is her sister Ellie. Ellie is a single mother, taking care of 3 children in Danny, Bridget, and the youngest of the family, Cassie. Living in a condemned Ellie apartment complex, and it's clear to see that this family is struggling even long before this story begins. Instantly, this is yet another factor of the film that shows us this is set to be something new, with Evil Dead as a franchise stepping into new territory with this urban context, at least as far as the movies go. That's pretty much where the stark differences end, however, because in every other sense of it, Rise is most certainly an Evil Dead movie at heart. Through the movie, Beth develops from someone running away from motherhood into someone embracing it. Sure, there's probably better ways to ease someone into the idea of being a parent, but, whatever gets the message across. Look, the Evil Dead movies have always featured pretty likeable characters, with the most notable one of course being Ash Williams. In fact, I'd offer the idea that they don't ever tend to make any character particularly unlikable, and Beth is certainly no different. Through the nature of the character, Lily Sullivan is able to portray her as this very ambiguous person early on, someone who we aren't quite sure we know, into someone that's taking clear steps in definitive growth into becoming a better person. We see her start out dreading parenthood, but come the end of the movie, she's ready to take that next journey in life, having become a guardian for Cassie, filling in the shoes of Ellie after her death. The transition in her character feels very natural in terms of progression, and I think it's something to commend when I say I don't think the Beth we meet at the start of the movie would have listened to that third tape in the hope of finding a way to fix this. Like most protagonists, we have a pre-story Beth and a post-story Beth, and this film does a really good job of making that feel like a steady transition. Acting across the board is something that goes down as a huge win for Rise as well. I'm not going to sit and talk about everyone and give an in-depth analysis of their performance, but I do want to give this group a praise for how they do play this. It's really well done between Alyssa Sutherland, Morgan Davis, Gabriella Calls, and breakout actress Nell Fisher in her first ever role. I was able to buy this family dynamic being portrayed super easily. It takes a lot to create a familial feeling on screen that also comes with that level of authenticity, but Rise seems to do it in record timing. I also really like the fact that Sutherland is able to strike up an instant level of empathy with the audience by building believable bonds with her on-screen co-stars. The kid actors instantly gel, and I think Nell Fisher in certain areas is almost what makes this film. One scene that really showed me she has the talent to be here was the door scene with Sutherland playing the demonic remnants of her mother. You know, this entire moment had me on edge, and feelings like that just aren't possible if your actors aren't all on the same page. In fact, across the whole movie, Fisher is fantastic, which is just a really refreshing factor when realising how often we're plagued by awkward performances from child stars. Here, however, beside a few little accent slips, there's not a moment where she goes wrong, no moment that feels underacted. I feel completely safe here saying that Nell Fisher 100% has a future in this genre should she choose to stay here. The family dynamic also plays into another harrowing factor of Rise, and that's the relentlessly brutal nature of it all. This movie is a horribly gruesome deconstruction of a dysfunctional family unit, a 90-minute showcase of a family being torn to pieces from the inside, both metaphorically and literally. We witness this little family being subjected to some fucked up shit. We see Cassie impale Bridget with a broken broom handle. We see Bridget swallow glass while Beth watches. We see Danny stabbed by Bridget before he sets her on fire. This film is unending in terms of forcing us to watch a family suffer through hell, and it's an unforgiving aspect of the movie that I actually really appreciate. It doesn't shy away from a single thing. This brings an odd and yet uncanny level of tragedy into this film, one that actually I didn't really get a chance to process while I was watching it for the first time. Perhaps I'm a rare example in this, but it wasn't until I was sitting through the credits upon that first viewing that, the real tragedy of this movie dawned on me, and that is the breakdown of this family is just heartbreaking to sit through. To think of children having to face their mother being forcefully ripped from their lives is one thing itself. But to then pair that with the thought that the real disruption began with a vacant father figure, as well as the horrifying situation they find themselves in now with a demon wearing their mother as a skin suit, tormenting and converting them one by one, it's truly depressing, and it hit my empathetic ass like a train when I realised the pain this family went through started long before the events of this film. Meaning that we only actually ever see the pinnacle of their suffering. We don't really see that build-up. Sure, we see some build-up, we see build-up of a new type of suffering, but there is pain here below what we're seeing in Rise. To move on from characters, I think another really strong aspect of Evil Dead Rise that almost is a character in a weird way is the camera work. Cinematographer Dave Garbett is able to put his stamp on the franchise in a way that feels like it belongs. That's right, this stuff is so pleasing to the eye at times that it's deserving of the Evil Dead title because of that alone. There's so many awesome moments that are made through the use of creative camera work, whether it be the drone fake out in the opening, Ellie's hallway attack with that incredibly satisfying rotation of the shot as she leaps onto another victim, or the vent scene. The way that the foreground shows us Beth while Ellie creeps out just out of focus is chilling. There's a reason this right here was used to promote the film when it was shown in trailers, because it fucking rules. Point being, Evil Dead has come to be known for one thing that stands consistent through every single entry into this franchise, and that is the use of the frenetic and energetic camera work. Rise doesn't let us down in the slightest. It presents us with such wicked imagery. There are so many shots or moments that stand out to me just because of how well the cinematography is framed. It's another one of my favourite elements of this film, and another reason that, for me, Evil Dead Rise just succeeds in near enough every angle. To talk another fundamental aspect of Evil Dead, you have your gore, and to say this one delivers would be putting things a little lightly. Rise revels in the chance it gets to showcase gore. Whether we're watching Beth and Cassie swim in an elevator being filled with blood, or watching the possessed corpses of Danny and Bridget tear into their mother, merging into a multi-limbed demonic entity known as the Marauder, Rise doesn't give you a moment to breathe as it throws the blood at you in buckets. This movie is one that really isn't afraid in the slightest when it comes to potentially making an audience feel uneasy. It understands that gore is a staple of this franchise, and it takes pleasure in that. The chance to be something with no limits. The way this film romanticizes the blood and guts of horror at times is oddly mesmerising and something that needs to be praised. I really do think Cronin and his crew knocked this out of the park. Even in the ending, it would be fair to say we've seen more than enough blood for an Evil Dead third act with Beth literally coated in it from the elevator. But instead we get more, being given a front row seat to a fountain of blood as Beth drives the signature chainsaw through the head of her sister in one triumphant fuck you, and also I guess the relevant adoption procedure now that she's taken Cassie on as her own. Lee Cronin is a director that I have very limited knowledge of. I will not shy away and pretend I've seen more of his work. I've only seen one other movie of his, and I can't say I know much about what he likes to bring to a project, but what I can say is what he brought to Evil Dead Rise absolutely works. The movie knows on a self-aware level that it's both haunting and unnervingly funny at times, and it allows itself to play into that. It creates this truly nauseating sensation that stayed with me during the entire runtime, creating undoubtedly one of my favourite horror experiences on the big screen. Because that's the reality of the reason that Evil Dead Rise succeeds with ease. Horror is as much about the feeling or the sensation of fear as it is about the release of said fear through whatever jump scare this film throws at us. Without that feeling, horror can quickly feel hollow and fail in almost every way to connect or resonate with an audience. Rise manages to sidestep this issue entirely through the use of commonalities and tropes seen throughout the genre and also the franchise itself. This film isn't only a love letter to the original, it's yet another regeneration of a franchise that, much like the demons that plague it, just refuses to die. Evil Dead Rise is unforgiving in its focus, choosing to hold us hostage with a chainsaw and take us on a ride filled with both brutality and tragedy. Cronin and everyone involved have created something so special, and while it might not be my favourite horror film of all time, it's certainly up there and it's 100% one of the best in the last decade. The attention to detail and also the respect that it has for the legacy of the franchise knows no end, slyly dropping little nods that fans can recognise, but they're never prominent enough to be more than just a passing acknowledgement. I love Evil Dead Rise. I love this movie and all 6,500 litres of fake blood that it used. I don't think it's without its flaws, but the positives definitely outweigh the negatives, and I truly hope this can be the start of Evil Dead's return to the limelight as an active horror title. Because God knows we're all looking for a little more grooviness in life. So that is Evil Dead Rise. Please get down in the comments and let me know your thoughts and opinions on what is an incredibly divisive movie as it turns out. I wanted to cover this one for a while, and I'm sorry I'm only just getting around to it. As you all know, it's been difficult trying to get this all organised. However, if you feel like sticking around and you're new here, then like I said at the start of the video, a subscription will go a long way in helping this channel grow. And I'll see you all sometime in the next few weeks when we take a trip to Camp Crystal Lake. But until then, I've been Media13, and I hope you're all having a fantastic day.